exploding dumplings, pizza topped with durian, and kissing mishaps. This week, we're in China.
Traveling the world to bring you delicious dishes, tasty beverages, and interesting experiences. This is the Destination Eat Drink Podcast on the Radio Misfits Podcast Network.
I'm Brent Peterson. Welcome to Destination Eat Drink, the travel podcast for foodies. If you're new here, Destination Eat Drink is the place for foodies who like to travel and travelers who love to eat. And my guest this week is world traveler and cultural intelligence consultant, Dr. CK, aka Doctora the Explorer. But first, hit the pause button and rate and review Destination Eat Drink on your podcast app. It helps the show and it helps other foodie travelers find Destination Eat Drink. And if you want to make your trip more food-centric, check out my Foodie Travel Guide ebooks. I have dozens of city guides available for download and a full Portugal foodie travel guide with all the best things to eat and drink, as well as the coolest things to do in 17 cities and towns for just $9.99. Download that at buymeacoffee.com/destinationeatdrink, and thank you very much. Dr. CK, also known in travel circles as Doctora the Explorer, is a cultural intelligence consultant with a Doctor of Management in Global Leadership. Dr. CK has traveled to over 30 countries, worked with clients and organizations in more than 45 countries, and is the host of the Beyond Borders podcast, where she talks about living abroad and her experience living in places like China, Mexico, South Africa, and more. She tells me about the concept of cultural intelligence, when tipping is offensive, and being the tallest person in the city. And that's not pineapple on your pizza, plus a detour to the Philippines for a burger. Okay, I'm starving, so let's eat.
Destination Eat Drink.
Dr. CK, aka Doctora the Explorer, welcome to Destination Eat Drink. I'm really looking forward to our conversation.
It's almost like I've made it. I'm in the big leagues now. Like, I love your podcast and I'm so excited to be here. Hello to all the Destination Eat Drink listeners. Thank you for having me.
Great to talk to you, Dr. CK. You know, I listened to your podcast too, Beyond Borders, and one thing that struck me as I started to listen to it for the first time is you use this term that I hadn't heard before, and that's cultural intelligence. And as I listen to more episodes of your podcast, I kind of get a gist as to what it is. But I was wondering if you could explain to me and the audience, what is cultural intelligence?
Absolutely. Oh, I love it. And I hope I don't get too carried away, because culture, I love cultures. All different cultures. And I've always wanted to learn more about them, right? And so traveling, being abroad like you are, you know, when you are a part of a culture, you have to adjust, right? You have to begin to adapt. And so cultural intelligence, which we actually call CQ, okay? It's like, you know, your IQ, well, this is CQ. Right. So it is your ability to relate to or work with and even thrive in different cultural contexts. And so it's, you know, whether you're traveling, whether you are working internationally, or you're just simply interacting with people from different backgrounds right where you are in your hometown, this is cultural intelligence. And so there are a couple of components when we practice cultural intelligence. We look at our drive, you know, the motivation that we have to engage with other cultures. That's one of my main things. It really ties into just my natural curiosity for other cultures, and then my passion for global connection. That may be the same thing for some of you who are listening now. And then we also have the knowledge component. You know, cultural intelligence as it relates to knowledge. This is when you get to understand cultural norms, living in another country, understanding their norms are not the same norms as your home country. The values are different. You know, the practices are different. And so being able to understand that type of knowledge instead of wishing that this country should be just like my country, instead of saying, well, why do you do things this way? We don't do it that way in my country.
Right.
Hello, you're not in your country. Right. So it's that knowledge component and making sure that you have what I would call the maturity and the desire to adapt to that culture. Nobody said that you have to, assimilate where you completely leave behind your own culture, but it's your choice to be a part of other cultures. So make sure that you, have it like a nice, beautiful mixed salad, right? You have all the different components and they each have their own flavor, but putting them together, it makes an amazing dish, whether it's an entree or a side dish. The salad is going to be beautiful because of its variety. Does that make sense?
It does. And, as you were explaining this, Dr. CK, I just kept thinking about my experience here in Portugal, and a few things came to mind. One is, first and foremost, this is something that I repeat on the podcast all the time, which is, we as foreigners, as immigrants coming to Portugal, we want to bend towards Portugal, not have Portugal bend towards us. And
exactly,
as I spend more time here, it becomes easier and easier. It distresses me, though, when I see other immigrants, especially North Americans, come here and do exactly what you said, complain about why it isn't like it is back home, or trying to recreate a little America, a little California, somewhere in Portugal.
I'm laughing because I tend to think, okay, yes, it is true that we have in America, we have Chinatown, we have Little Italy in different metropolitan cities, because people want to retain parts of their culture and identity. But what I have noticed in the difference between when North Americans, I'll say North Americans, travel to, or I guess, become expats in other countries, they want the whole system to change. And what I've noticed about immigrants that come here to the States, they're not trying to change the system. They just want to retain some of, their culture, their heritage, their legacy, while they are blending it in with what we have. And I think that Americans, please do not hate me or get upset with me with what I'm about to say. This is just from my own observation and experience. But I feel like immigrants come to us with more cultural intelligence than we go to them with cultural intelligence.
I would be hard to disagree with you on that. I think another point might be, and again, we're speaking in generalities here, Dr. CK. This is not a hard and fast rule, but I can tell you from my experience, my grandfather, for instance, he was born in the U.S. in Chicago, but his older siblings and his parents were all born in Germany. And he grew up speaking the German language. And there was a huge German immigrant community in Chicago, German newspapers and German trade unions. And it was massive. And they had their own parts of the city. And my girlfriend, who's from Rhode Island, is Italian American, and her grandparents came from Italy. And in both cases, there were specific Italian or German sections of the city, which may or may not still exist. However, as generations move on, they tend to move up and out. And my observation is in that a lot of these cases, these Little Italies, these Chinatowns, they are like the first step on the economic ladder. It's like kind of getting your training wheels in America. You can still live with people who are speaking your language, but your kids, they will probably be about as American as anybody.
Right. I love that. That's absolutely true.
There was one other thing I wanted to talk about, CQ, and that is, I'm wondering what advice you would give travelers if they're going to a different country as to how they can practice CQ? Because I think I've been in Portugal for like 3.5 years now, and I'm still learning all kinds of stuff every day.
Yeah.
How am I going to do it if I'm just going to a place for 2 weeks?
Well, that's such a great question. You can actually plan out your CQ strategy. What you can do is, first of all, research where you're going, right? I mean, you're probably doing it anyway, finding your accommodations, what type of travel arrangements you're going to have, transportation, all those things, the type of restaurants you want to go to. If you're doing all of that research, also check out the norms, check out the cultural values, check out some of the etiquette when it comes to communication. What gestures might seem inappropriate. We don't think about stuff like that until we're there. And then we have an accident, a mishap, and then we're like, I wish I would have knew about that. I feel so embarrassed, right?
Right.
And then you have to apologize. And they're like, oh, this, this American, whatever that might mean, right?
You won't believe what they did today.
Right, exactly. Exactly. You will become the topic at dinner time, right? But you can plan and adjust your approach based on the cultural insights, researching the etiquette before traveling, and then actually adapt your behavior. You can adapt your behavior from the way you greet people to how you order food or how you conduct business, how you hail a ride. It's not just about what you know, because you can study things about a culture all day, every day. But if you don't show up that way, if you don't actually adapt your behavior, like change your behavior to fit in with that type of cultural value, then you could still end up being offensive or still end up being seen as, ignorant. And that may not necessarily be the case. It's just that you have to put that application into practice.
I'll give you 2 examples that I can think of from my life right off the top of my head that I had a little bit of difficulty adapting to. And one is greeting people with 2 kisses, 1 on each cheek. This is not something that I was used to in America. And first time someone came in for that kiss, I was like, what's happening here? But now it seems like almost second nature.
Yeah.
Even with immigrant friends, it's still, often a kiss on each cheek. And then the other one is tipping in restaurants. And it took me a while to get over feeling guilty of leaving without leaving a tip, because in Portugal, they don't have, now you're starting to see it pop up in some places, but they don't have a culture of tipping. And I would always be like, well, I'm paying with my credit card. Can I just add it to the thing on the machine? And that has happened exactly in 3.5 years, exactly twice to me, where there's been a prompt to tip on that little machine.
Oh, wow.
So if you do want to tip, and tipping is appreciated, you leave €1 or 2 or whatever, but you have to do it in cash. And I don't always carry cash. So sometimes I find myself empty-handed. I'm like, oh man, I forgot to have, because I'm not used to carrying cash either. I'm used to paying with the card every time. So would those 2 things be examples of CQ, Dr. CK?
Absolutely. And the reason why I'm able to be so passionate about CQ now is because I was my first case study. Okay. Listen, I made so many mistakes. You're talking about, so I was laughing when you were talking about the kiss on the cheeks, right? The two kisses, because depending on where you are, the cheek that you start on matters.
Right.
And so first of all, my grandfather is full-blown Puerto Rican. He was born in Puerto Rico. My father is half Puerto Rican. So he was born in New Jersey, but he didn't stay with the language, right? So for me, I'm like, well, I have 1/4 of it. So I'm going to go learn the language and I'm going to learn the culture. So, Spanish is my second language. And so, I always had that type of embracing and, we kiss on the cheek. But when I went to Europe, depending on the country I was in, and I made friends wherever I went, starting on the wrong cheek it was so confusing for me. At one point, I accidentally kissed someone. It was not intended. I was like, which way do we go? Why do you start on this side? They start on this side. It was embarrassing, frustrating, and hilarious at the same time. So the whole, kiss on the cheek faux pas was definitely there. But when I moved to China, there was the whole no tipping as well. My first week, I was just like you, I'm tipping. And I did not realize, Brent, that it was considered offensive.
Right.
Tip. I was just like, but you work hard. I don't know how much you earn here, but here's your extra money. It took locals to tell me, we don't do that. We don't, he actually feels offended. And I'm just like, but he did such a great job and he was smiling. And then all of a sudden you can tell his entire attitude shifted. It changed. And I was really, really baffled for a few weeks, because here I am, the first few weeks that I moved to China to teach English. Not something that I had planned on doing, but it was a different type of gap year. Okay. Most people have a gap year to where they don't work. My gap year was, I'm going to go work for just a year in China. It's not what I want to do. It has nothing to do with my degree, nothing at all. I'm just going to go. And that whole, basically, I would say probably the first 6 weeks, was all about me making tons and tons of mistakes, tipping, and, the type of greetings and looking at, just, it was very, very, very confusing. And you would have thought that I did, my studying, because I was just like, I know how to say hello. I know how to say ni hao, and I know how to say thank you, even though I was saying it with the wrong accent, right? I was saying all these things. I'm like, I'm ready. And then I get there and it's like, which China was I preparing myself to come live in? Because this is not it. What in the world? So, the whole, the tipping thing, I really had to learn about that. And it did me good to actually make friends with locals in the area who could sit me down and communicate to me why this was offensive, to help me understand a little bit better. So that way, when other immigrants came, and we took them out because it was their inaugural week, we're trying to get them acclimated to the cultural climate, telling them, no, we don't tip, and some people you didn't have to tell because they were like, I'm not giving my money anyway. But for those of us who are used to tipping, it was really a shocker.
I think about the culture shock that I had going from the United States to Portugal, and compare that to China. It's got to be like going to a different planet. What were some of the other culture shocks that you experienced when you moved to China?
Oh my Lord. Let me just preface this by saying I love China. It has become my second home. And the following things that you are about to hear are my own experiences. Okay. My own. I just want to put that out there. I had so much culture shock. I had to take it one step at a time, one day at a time. First of all, I would probably say, let's start with the positive. Let's do a little sandwich. Positive, negative, positive. Okay.
Good.
I think the biggest thing was how beautiful it was. I love big lights. I love, I really love to see, high rises and all of the things like that, which I did not expect to see when I got there. Not in the supposedly little city. Oh my gosh, Brent, what they call a little city is like an entire state in the United States. I was like, what do you mean this is just a little city? Oh my gosh. It was how beautiful and how shiny everything looked. My first city that I actually moved to was it's called Shaoshan City. And it's just a little city outside of Hangzhou, which is like bigger. I don't know if you all are familiar with like Alibaba and Tencent.
The e-commerce sites.
Yes. So Jack Ma, he's a Hangzhou native. And so all Hangzhou and like even the smaller cities that are near around, I mean, you would go and be like, oh my God, this is like tech central. For me, as a techie, I felt like this was the most amazing place in the world for me to be. So I was really shocked by just the newness of what it looked like, but it still had that traditional Chinese culture. It was just like, you would see Chinese lanterns hanging up and you would see, you know, like just all the beautiful decorations. And for some reason, they really love Christmas lights and Christmas music. So like, even though they're not Christian, they're not a Christian country. They have like Christmas stuff up everywhere all year round. So at nighttime, like you would be like, why is it so bright outside? It's because the whole place is lit up like it's Christmas time.
Awesome.
And it blew me away. So that I was very shocked by that. And honestly, it really raised the bar in terms of what I wanted my life to look like in terms of living. So that was a huge culture shock for me. The second thing, though, was, I would say, the sanitation. Sanitary practices are completely different, okay? Because I'm trying to do so well with this, Brent, I'm telling you, but I'm just people's DNA were everywhere, you know, just hawking spit. Like you could be having a conversation and someone would literally hawk spit like right in front of you.
Oh, no.
And yes. And for me I used to be a germaphobe. China cleared that up for me quickly.
It better. Otherwise you're not going to survive.
I'm telling you, my first like year and a half, I spent not wanting to touch stuff just because the sanitation practices were not up to par. I mean, the coughing without covering their mouth. And when they did cover their mouth, they're still, you know, just the sneezing without covering the mouth, sneezing of what, you know, it was so gross to me. And I'm like, and culture shock, huge. Peeing in public.
No. Oh, no.
Brent. Peeing in public. Now, I was told that this was because I was, you know, in the southern part of China. Well, when I moved up to northeastern China, in my favorite city of all time, Dalian, which is where I actually ended up living for 3 years and probably would still be there today had I not got married. But even moving up to the northeastern part of China, peeing in public, you know, peeing on the side of a wall. I was literally just like, how can this place look so beautiful and you not want to take care of it? But that was me, you know, and I think that would probably be most people, right? Like looking like, you're spinning here, you're doing this, come on, like clean it up. And also, nobody prepared me for the lack of toilets.
Oh,
they have more now, but there were holes, like, you know, nice urinals. You know, the men have urinals that stand up on the wall. Well, these urinals were in the ground.
Oh, geez.
Okay. These were in the ground. Now, I am not the thinnest chick in the world, people. Let me just tell you that now. So literally my first time using I was like, I have to squat. Like, I'm not doing well with this at all. My legs were sore. I felt like, Brent, let me tell you, I felt like I had worked out for like a marathon just to try to squat to use the restroom. I said, this is not going to work. We need a toilet. Somebody give me a Western toilet immediately because this is disrespectful. But I was the one being disrespectful, right? Because here I am. I didn't prepare myself. I should have known that I would need to squat. I could have been walking or exercising or something to physically prepare myself for this physical torment that my body would have.
Oh my God.
But I adapted.
Right.
I adapted. And I was very grateful that there were, like I said, they had new renovations that was really occurring around the city. And in the newer apartments, they did have Western style toilets.
Let's close our sandwich. We had the good, we had the bad. Now let's put the nice piece of crusty bread on the top here.
Okay, here's the other good. Well, okay, when I got there, everyone had on masks.
Okay.
And I was like, why are all of these people sick? Like, what is going on? Everywhere I went, they had on a mask. But it wasn't because they were sick. It was because of the AQI, the air quality. It was that bad.
And this is before COVID.
Way before COVID.
Yeah.
Way before COVID. So wearing masks wasn't like a big thing for them. When everybody's like, put your mask on, they're like, well, I already have on a mask because if I go outside and I breathe in too much of this air, I'm going to have, some type of reaction or allergies and all those things. I had no idea about that. Then I started wearing a mask because I wanted to be protected too. So the positive thing that shocked me was how hungry the people were to get to know about different cultures. And when I say hungry, I mean like wanting to befriend you because they want to know everything about you and everything about your country. And I mean, I even had a couple of instances where my first landlord, she thought I was a spy. she thought I was
Doctora
a spy.
the Spy.
And I'm telling you, I laughed so much at that later. She was like, let me ask you a question. I mean, literally her eyes were like big, but can I ask you a question? And I'm like, sure, Candy. What's going on? What is it? She said, are you a spy? And I'm like, do I look like spy material? Like, I mean, I've never, like in my life, nobody's ever asked me that. I said, no. She was like, well, I'm just wondering. And my students wanted to know the same. They were like, but you have a doctorate. Like you have doctor. Why are you working here? Why are you just teaching English? And it was so funny because as I tried to explain the concept of like taking a gap year, like just taking a break, I didn't understand it. It was like an educational moment for them. And they still didn't understand it. But the people, oh my gosh, they were so friendly. You do have those who just stare at you. So I'm quite tall, by the way, Brent. So I'm not the thinnest, and then I'm also tall. And so here I am walking around in this city where I am probably, except for maybe a few other foreigners, the tallest person in the entire city, right? Seriously, no lie. My first experience with one of the sweet elderly people walking by, a man, I will never forget this. I'm just walking with my colleagues, and he literally comes down here, and I'm like up here. And I guess he wasn't watching where he was going, and I startled him. He looks up, he's like, whoa. Like if you all the listeners could see my face, like Brent, because he's just like, whoa.
Who's this giant lady?
Looks me up and down and just walks off shaking his head as if he's seen like an alien. Because in that region, not many foreigners were there. So they barely ever saw foreigners. So I was like a spectacle to them, right? But the people were so interested in learning more. So they're like, can I take you out to lunch? Can you sit with me? Can we go here? I want to take you to this place. Oh, China is very, very rich in culture. I want to teach you about this. And I loved it. I had teachers and I had friends, and I didn't ask for either. I just simply wanted to go and have this really like this discovery year of being away from all that I was used to and known, literally forcing myself to step out of what was comfortable and go into something that was completely uncomfortable. I didn't know Chinese. I didn't know any of this stuff. And the experience was it left such a positive impact on me because I was able to come back to the States, travel back and forth and tell all the people who told me not to go to China because I'm a Christian. All the people told me, don't go to China because, they persecute Christians. They don't like Christians. They're going to burn your Bible. You can't walk around with a Bible. You can't do this and do that. I mean, I had some really crazy people who never left their own city or state tell me not to leave the country.
Yeah, right.
And I'm just like, now that's where Doctora the Explorer really, really came alive. I had it when I went backpacking through Europe, and that was beautiful. It was amazing. It was great. But China was the thing that really put Doctora the Explorer out there because I was able to show the people who would never leave the comfort of their own home the beauty of living abroad. And I mean, it was like, it makes me emotional just to think about it because I love it so much. I truly love it.
So that gap year turned into a gap couple of years. Tell me about the thing I'm interested in, which is the food, because I've never been to China and I've heard you talk about it's like, yeah, if you think you've had Chinese food in America, you haven't had Chinese food. So tell me, what is it like?
So let me just say, American Chinese food has always been my favorite. But I thought that it was the real Chinese food. So I was like, oh, I'm going to be eating a lot. Ooh, when I get there, I'm going to have my favorite. I'm going to have my sesame chicken. I love sesame chicken. I'm going to have that. I'm going to have all the egg rolls and all this stuff. So I get my first meal in China. And it smelled good. It did. It smelled good. So I'm looking, and so we went to a buffet, and I'm like getting all the things that I'm like, oh, first of all, everything was in Chinese. So I had no idea what I was picking up.
Right.
Okay. So I'm like, that looks like sesame chicken and this and that and this. Brent, it was so distasteful.
Oh no.
Where we went. It was so bad. I was like, this is not Chinese food. What is this? And the local that I was at, how is this not Chinese food? You're in China. Like, this is authentic Chinese food. And it took me a while. It actually took me a while to adjust my taste buds to the authentic Chinese food. And then I had to realize there were certain things that I loved that were cooked well. And then there were others where you would find like, these American brands in China, but with their own twist. That to me is cultural intelligence, right? The first time I went to a Pizza Hut and they put squid on my pizza, I thought I was going to die.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yes. Squid on pizza. Then they also add durian. Durian is this really funky.
Stinky.
I mean, it don't stink. It stinks. Okay. With an A. It smells so bad, but they put it on pizza. Oh. And like some people love it. Durian is and Brent, because I couldn't read in Chinese, I'm just going by pictures. I thought I was getting pineapple pizza. so here it comes. I'm like, what is that smell? Here it comes right across my nose. Like, here's your pizza. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that is not pineapple. Just all these things.
I think your pineapple went bad.
This pineapple has expired. Okay. Like it is no longer sweet. It is done for. But I had to find the right cuisine. There's so many different cuisines in China. There's not just like Chinese food. You have the influence of the South, and they love spicy food. Mm-hmm. Me, I thought I loved spicy food. China taught me that I do not. China taught me that spicy food is not for me because their spicy is on a completely different level. It obliterated my spice taste buds that I had. Not anymore. Can't do it. They love spicy. But then when you go into the more international places, that's when you get American Chinese food. That's Cantonese food. That's when you go into like Shanghai. You have this. Oh my gosh. Let me tell you something. These dumplings, I wish I had they're like this size. No lie. They're called baozi. They're super huge.
So like almost bigger than a baseball, maybe.
Yes, bigger than a baseball. Maybe about the size of a baseball.
Size of a baseball. Okay.
Slightly. Yeah. But it's filled with different things. You can get some vegetarian ones, and then you can get, the ones that have just different meat. Is really minced meat. But then there's this, it's my absolute favorite. I have to find it. There's these types of, they're not really dumplings, Brent, but they're like a mix between maybe the little pot stickers that have, food on the inside and maybe a little bit of vegetable like meat and rice or something, and the baozi, the really big one. They're like middle. You bite into them and they explode with juice.
Okay.
It is divine. I'm telling you, every foreigner that came into my area, I said, we have to go here. I have to take you to this place. It's called Yang's. I will never forget. YANG''S. They have the most amazing exploding dumplings. They're so delicious. I mean, but then we have the northeastern part of China where they really focus on seafood. I was living in Dalian, and they are right on the sea. So you have everyone specializes in seafood over there. Everyone, except for the Canadians who bring in some of the most amazing food there. I mean, you have different things. There was a German restaurant, which is extremely popular.
Oh.
I mean, several fusion places as well. The food was great. I mean, we went out to eat maybe at least twice a week. Try not to.
It's fascinating because, when you think of these places, you don't automatically think, oh, they're going to have an international component to them. They're going to have American chains. They're going to have a German restaurant.
Right.
That's really interesting. I did want to ask you though about as you were talking about all these great dishes, I was thinking, well, what am I going to have for dessert then, Dr. CK?
They do have some interesting. The yogurts are pretty good. The way that they are fermented, it's totally different than, runny, watery yogurt. I mean, it's very rich and thick. And it was very filling. I do like that. And then you have those who have more of a Western type of influence. So they have the cookies and the cakes and all of that stuff, but they just don't have a lot of the sugar.
I see.
It looks beautiful, but a diabetic would be happy because it's not sugary at all. Mm-mm.
The last thing I wanted to ask you before I let you go, on your Substack, I think in your bio, it says you're always on the hunt for the best gourmet burger. And I'm just wondering, where's the best gourmet burger you've ever had?
I love a good burger. And every country I go to, I look for the best gourmet burger. And so far, the best burger that I have had is in Dalian, China.
Wow. I'm surprised you said that.
I know. But it's because they made it the way that I've requested it. I usually don't go in and request a burger to be, a certain way. But at this point in time, because I won't say I was having some type of allergic reaction, but I wasn't doing bread because it wasn't sitting well with my body.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wanted a juicy, fresh burger. And the chef was super nice. He made this beautiful double stacked burger that had, it didn't have a lot of crazy stuff, but it had egg and it had bacon and it had, the avocado. And I mean, the egg was I don't usually do runny egg, but just the way that the runny egg had dripped over into the burger, it was crazy. And to me, I know that's not super gourmet, but at that time it was perfect. Second runner up is the Philippines. If you want good food, drop what you are doing right now and book a flight to Cebu, Philippines. CEBU people.
Philippines.
Okay. Has the most amazing food. They have a ton of Korean. I don't know why. I think I need to go back and check that out because they had so many different Korean barbecue places. And they call them samguktal or something like that. I need to go back and get the correct word for that. But it was the one thing that would have made me stay in the Philippines, because that's where my husband and I were going to live. The one thing that made me stay in the Philippines was the food. And of course, the people. The people were amazing. But the food, the country that I have enjoyed food in the most has to be the Philippines.
You know, it's so interesting that you say that because everyone who goes to the Philippines says how great the food is. And Filipinos are really big. They have a huge diaspora all over the world, but it's not real easy to find Filipino food, at least in the countries that I've been to, even when there's a Filipino population. And I'm not sure why it is. I wonder if it's because the women tend to be in the healthcare industry, the ones who go abroad, and a lot of the men work in the shipping industry. And I don't know why you don't have a lot of Filipino restaurants. We were in Milan a year and a half ago. There's a huge Filipino population there. We went to a Filipino church service there. But there's not, I tried to find a Filipino restaurant and it's really, really hard to find. So I guess the moral of that story is got to go to the Philippines. So
definitely. They have a lot of fusion restaurants. That's what I noticed.
Okay.
And so I think that was one of the things that because I didn't know when I was necessarily eating, Filipino food, because their culture has a lot of influences from other cultures as well.
Right.
And so
Spanish American and
absolutely,
and all kinds of other places nearby. Yeah.
Absolutely. And then, Korean and Japanese as well.
Sure.
But I honestly, Brent, I was so shocked to see just how many Korean restaurants were there.
Wow. Cool.
It was just a ton of Korean food everywhere, Korean barbecue, but it was mainly the buffets and all the meat you want to cook and all the vegetables and all the things. I mean, Korean food was really, really popular.
Well, this has been a great conversation. I've had so much fun. It's been so interesting too. I feel like just from talking to you for a little while that I've improved my CQ immensely. So thank you for that, Dr. CK. We'll have a link to the Beyond the Borders podcast in the show notes and also your Substack. I would encourage everyone to listen to the podcast and to subscribe to your Substack because you're always coming out with interesting stuff on both of those fronts. So Dr. CK, Doctora the Explorer, thank you so much for being on Destination Eat Drink. It's been a true pleasure.
It's been this has been the highlight of my week. And although it's early in the week, but I promise you it's going to carry over because I'm super excited. And honestly, I'm honored. This is, I thank you. Thank you everyone for listening and laughing. I'm sure you probably got in a couple of chuckles as well. If nothing else, for the urinal and the floor, right? So thank you so much for having me. And I have to have you on Beyond the Borders. Oh man.
I'd love to do
That's going to be awesome.
Okay, that's Dr. CK, aka Doctora the Explorer. What a fun conversation. It's so great when I get to talk to someone who's so smart like Dr. CK, who also loves to laugh, just like I do. You can find her at drcharitytv.substack.com. That's drcharitytv.substack.com. And you can listen to the Beyond Borders podcast on your podcast app. And if you want to hear more from my conversation with Dr. CK, check out my Substack. Members can hear the full interview, including stuff about living in Mexico with a Mexican family, eating a habanero pepper by accident, and moving to South Africa during the pandemic. Plus all the different names of African cornmeal porridge. You can hear that on my Substack at destinationeatdrink.substack.com. Well, that's it for this week. Next week, we're in Florence on the Camino de Santiago and enjoying Grandma's mole with experience curator Amy Maldonado. Until then, get over to Destination Eat Drink, where I've got tons of new foodie travel stuff, including a new video about the Marquês de Pombal neighborhood in Lisbon. I try a classic Portuguese dish made in a brand new way, visit a library that used to be a palace, and sip some delicious third wave coffee. You can see that by clicking on the video tab at destinationeatdrink.com or go to my YouTube channel. That's at youtube.com/@destinationeatdrink946. I also posted a new story about a dish that's made its way from Wales to Lille, France. You can read about that and see all its cheesy deliciousness at destinationeatdrink.com/blog. And if you've got a trip to Portugal coming up or you just love Portuguese food, download your copy of my Portugal Foodie Travel Guide. It has all the best local dishes and drinks unique to 17 different cities and towns in Portugal, plus the best things to do. Get yours for just $9.99 at buymeacoffee.com/destinationeatdrink, and thank you very much. Destination Eat Drink is distributed by the Radio Misfits Podcast Network and Ed Silla. Thanks, Ed. I'm Brent Peterson. I'll see you down the road.
Join us next week for another culinary adventure on Destination Eat Drink, a presentation of the Radio Misfits Podcast Network.